But Mother, do stop before it's too late.
If you mean that the inspector will take offence...
No, I never take offence.
I'm glad to hear it. Though I must add that it seems to me that we have more reason for taking offence.
Let's leave offence out of it, shall we?
I think we'd better.
So do I.
I'm talking to the inspector now, if you don't mind. I realise that you may have to conduct some sort of inquiry, but I must say that you seem to be conducting it in a rather peculiar and offensive manner. You know, of course, that my husband was Lord Mayor only 2 years ago, and he's still a magistrate.
Mrs. Burling, the inspector knows all that, and I don't think it's a very good idea to remind him.
It's crazy. Stop it, please, Mother.
Yes, now, what about Mr. Burling?
He's coming back in a moment. He's just talking to my son, Eric, who seems to be in a silly, excitable mood.
What's the matter with him?
Eric? Oh, I'm afraid he may have had rather too much to drink tonight. We were having a little celebration here to...
Isn't he used to drinking?
Oh, no, of course not. He's only a boy.
No, he's a young man, and some young men drink far too much.
And Eric's one of them.
Sheila!
I don't want to get poor Eric into trouble. He's probably in enough trouble already. But we really must stop these silly pretences. This isn't the time to pretend that Eric isn't used to drink. He's been steadily drinking too much for the last 2 years.
It isn't true. You know him, Gerald, and you're a man. You must know it isn't true.
Well, Mr. Croft?
I'm afraid it is, you know. Actually, I've never seen much of him outside this house, but, well, I have gathered he does drink pretty hard.
And this is the time you choose to tell me?
Yes, of course it is. That's what I meant when I talked about building up a wall that's sure to be knocked flat. It makes it all the harder to bear.
But it's you, and not the inspector here, who's doing it.
Yes, but don't you see? He hasn't started on you yet.
If necessary, I shall be glad to answer any questions the inspector wishes to ask me. Though naturally I don't know anything about this girl.
We'll see, Mrs. Burling.
Well, I've been trying to persuade Eric to go to bed, but he won't now. He says you told him to stay up, did you?
Yes, I did.
Why?
Because I shall want to speak to him, Mr. Burling.
Well, I can't see why you should, but if you must, then I suggest you do it now. Have him in and get it over, and then let the lad go.
No, I can't do that. I'm sorry, but he'll have to wait.
Now look here,
He must
Inspector.
wait his turn.
You see?
No, I don't. And please be quiet, Sheila.
Inspector, I've told you before, I don't like your tone, nor the way you're handling this inquiry, and I don't propose to give you much more rope.
You needn't give me any rope.
No, he's giving us the rope, so we'll hang ourselves.
What's the matter with that child?
Overexcited, and she refuses to go. Well, come along. What is it you want to know?
At the end of January last year, this girl, Eva Smith, had to leave Millwards because Miss Burling compelled them to discharge her. And then she stopped being Eva Smith, looking for a job, and became Daisy Renton with other ideas. Mr. Croft, when did you first get to know her?
Where did you get the idea that I did know her?
It's no use, Gerald. You're wasting time.
As soon as I mentioned the name Daisy Renton, it was obvious you'd known her. You gave yourself away at once.
Of course he did.
And in any case, I already knew. When and where did you first meet her?
All right, if you must have it. I met her first sometime in March last year, in the Stalls Bar at the Palace. I mean the Palace Music Hall here in Brumley.
Well, we didn't think you meant Buckingham Palace.
Thanks. You're going to be of great help, I can see. You've said your piece, and you're obviously going to hate this, so why on earth don't you leave us to it?
Nothing would induce me. I want to understand exactly what happens when a man says he's so busy at the works that he can hardly ever find time to see the girl he's supposed to be in love with. I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Yes, Mr. Croft, in the Stalls Bar at the Palace Variety Theatre.
I happened to look in one night after a long, dull day, and as the show wasn't very bright, I went down into the bar for a drink. It's a favourite haunt of the women of the town.
Woman of the town?
Yes, but I see no point in mentioning the subject, especially...
Oh, it would be much better if Sheila didn't listen to the story at all.
But you're forgetting. I'm supposed to be engaged to the hero of it. Go on, Gerald. You went down into the bar, which is the favourite haunt of women of the town.
I'm glad I amused you.
Come along, Mr. Croft. What happened?
I didn't propose to stay long down there. I hate those hard-eyed, dough-faced women. But then I noticed a girl who looked quite different. She was very pretty, Soft brown hair and big dark eyes. My God.
What's the matter?
Sorry, I've just realised, taking it in properly, that she's dead.
Yes, she's dead.
And probably between us, we killed her.
Sheila, don't talk nonsense.
You wait, Mother.
Go on.
She looked young and fresh and charming and altogether out of place down there. Obviously she wasn't enjoying herself. Old Joe Meggerty, half drunk and goggle-eyed, had wedged her into a corner with that obscene fat carcass of his.
There's no need to be disgusting, and surely you don't mean Alderman Meggerty?
Of course I do. He's a notorious womanizer, as well as being one of the worst sots and rogues in Brumley.
Quite right.
Well, really, Alderman Meggerty. I must say we are learning something tonight.
Of course we are. But everyone knows about that horrible old Meggerty. A girl I know had to see him at the town hall one afternoon, and she only escaped with a torn blouse.
Sheila.
Go on, please.
The girl saw me looking at her and gave me a glance that was nothing less than a cry for help. So I went across and told Joe Meggerty some nonsense, that the manager had a message for him, something like that. Got him out of the way, and then told the girl if she didn't want any more of that sort of thing, she'd better let me take her out of there. She agreed at once.
Where did you go?
We went up to the county hotel, which I knew would be quiet that time of night. We had a few drinks, talked.
Did you drink much at the time?
No, she only had a port and lemonade or some such concoction. All she wanted was to talk, a little friendliness. And I gathered that Joe Meggerty's advances had left her rather shaken, as well they might.
She talked about herself.
Yes, I asked her questions about herself. She told me her name was Daisy Renton, she'd lost both parents, and that she came originally from somewhere outside of Brumley. She also told me she'd had a job in one of the works here and had had to leave after a strike. She said something about the shop too, but wouldn't say which it was. She was deliberately vague about what happened. I couldn't get any exact details from her about her past life. She wanted to talk about herself, just because she felt I was interested and friendly. But at the same time she wanted to be Daisy Renton, and not Eva Smith. In fact, I heard that name for the first time tonight. What she did let slip, if she didn't mean to, was that she was desperately hard up, and at that moment was actually hungry. I made the people at the county find some food for her.
And then you decided to keep her as your mistress.
What?
Of course, Mother. It was obvious from the start. Go on, Gerald. Don't mind Mother.
I discovered, not that night, but 2 nights later when we met again, not accidentally this time, of course, that in fact she hadn't a penny and was going to be turned out of the miserable back room she had. It happened that a friend of mine, Charlie Brunswick, had gone off to Canada for 6 months and let me have the key to a nice little set of rooms he had in Morgan Terrace. He asked me to keep an eye on them for him and use them if I wanted to. So I insisted on Daisy moving into those rooms, and I made her take some money to keep her going there. I want you to understand that I didn't install her there so that I could make love to her. I made her go to Morgan Terrace because I was sorry for her, and I didn't like the idea of her going back to the Palace Bar. I didn't ask for anything in return.
I see.
Yes, but why are you saying that to him? You should be saying it to me.
I suppose I ought really. I'm sorry, Sheila. Somehow
I know. Somehow he makes you.
But she became your mistress.
Yes. I suppose it was inevitable. She was young and pretty and warm-hearted, and intensely grateful. I became at once the most important person in her life. Understand?
Yes. She was a woman. She was alone. She was lonely. Were you in love with her?
Just what I was going to ask.
I really must protest.
Why should you do any protesting? It was you who turned the girl out in the first place.
Well, I only did what any employer might have done, and what I was going to say was that I protest against the way in which my daughter, a young, unmarried girl, is being dragged into this.
Your daughter isn't living on the moon. She's here in Brumley too.
Yes, and it was I who had the girl turned out of a job at Millward's. And I'm supposed to be engaged to Gerald. And I'm not a child, don't forget. I've a right to know. Were you in love with her, Gerald?